is the court in the context of the upcoming festivities and those in the relief camps. The Chief Justice said, bearing in mind persons should be in relief camps with regard to coming Christmas festival, both Solicitor General Tushar Mehta and ASG Aishwarya Bhati assure that the court that the necessary steps be taken to ensure that those in camps can attend all ceremonies regarding impending Christmas festival. Mr. Chakma, is it a tall order to deliver this, that people in camps, because there are multiple camps, lot of displaced population, how will they do
Not
it?
at all. I mean, that shouldn't have been even the order. It's simply because of the fact that the people are living in separate communities. And when the Christmas comes, obviously you are not going to build churches within the next 10 days. So whatever the facilities they have, with those facilities, they shall be celebrating, or at least, the Christmas. I think the problem is we are dealing with a failed state where the edifice of the state structure doesn't exist. And that is why when the court tries to pass orders on issues which can be dealt in an administrative manner, these are issues which should have been actually dealt by the district magistrate himself. And when the court tries to, pass orders which almost in a way ends up being the court being the administrator without physically being present there, it actually doesn't work out. And I think the Manipur case will increasingly show that the directions of the Supreme Court of India are much more difficult to implement. And that is where at certain stage, court will feel that, its directions are not being implemented, and it in a way affects the credibility of the court itself. Because when the court passes an order, if that order doesn't lead to any kind of situation, or if that is not fully implied with, then where does the commandment? And in this particular case, it's very clear, of course, you restore the places of worship, which already are identified from day one, because the data exists in the state of Manipur, and they are based on the FIR's file, or the recording of the incidents. Now, if you are not able to restore all these, what value the orders of the Supreme Court of India will have? So it's not Sabrimala and etc. I mean, when you are dealing with a conflict situation where the state even today doesn't want to take any visible measures, and the Union of India is not willing to put any pressure except Solicitor General coming and complying with directions of the court, and really what speaking up, or what the court wants to listen. But as I say, if the orders of the Supreme Court on these issues are not complied with, then what does the court do? At the end of the day, you restore not only a place of worship. Place of worship doesn't exist in vacuum. In there were, villages inhabited by the Metis in the hills, and there were villages inhabited by the KUKIs in the IMPHAL Valley. Now, you have not taken any measures. So you are passing directions regarding the restoration of places of worship. I mean, my first question is, what are you going to restore if people can't move in? I think it's, if there were continuing riots, if the Metis are not being allowed to, celebrate their religious festival, or cookies are not going to be allowed to celebrate the Christmas, etc., then these directions are helpful. Just because the Christmas are coming up, you issue these directions, with all due respect to the Supreme Court, unless you can force the state, or unless the state, whether the state government or Union of India, realize that, we are in Manipur, even today, I would say the government doesn't exist. So in that kind of a situation, when the courts get into the administration, even if limited respect with respect to religious places, then I think, the negative consequences are much more. Because when the writ of the court doesn't, lead to any improvement of situation, then what do you do with that? Then that's the end of it, because the government wasn't doing in any case in the first place. Now the court issues directions, and court directions are complied with. So then, you see basically a situation where everything has collapsed. And I think we will be increasingly moving towards that, because where do you see any attempt, either by the Union of India or the state of Manipur, first of all, to start some kind of reconciliation process, at least not visible even after 8 months. Then only if you started reconciliation process, then people could have moved. I mean, I don't think at this stage
I
anybody.
think you made a very strong statement. Gita Rani, did you say, are we looking at a fractured, failed state, or a state which is failing to fulfill its responsibility? If I don't use the word fail, failing to fulfill its responsibility.
Yeah,
Well, when
Kartikeya,
I say failed state,
I've asked Gita Rani ji, because
okay, okay,
you
sorry.
made a very a pointed reference to a particular issue.
I think Kartikeya, by now there's no doubt that the state government has failed in many different areas. I think people will agree to this, and that's why the Supreme Court needs to step in. I mean, people actually have approached the Supreme Court for certain things because they're not satisfied with what the state government has been doing. And Mr. Chakma has mentioned about the Supreme Court's order, whether it can be implemented or not, and what happens if it is not implemented. Actually, the court by suo moto is not taking up this issue about uh, rebuilding the or resecuring the places of worship. One party has approached it with specific prayer. That's why it is giving this order. Like the Supreme Court has not given any order during Diwali festival because the party concerned party did not approach it for such directions. But right now, this direction regarding Christmas celebration has come about because of certain applications. So the court has directed that the people should be maybe the submission was that they were not feeling secure enough that they will be allowed to celebrate this festival. So the court issued these directions. As regard state government's ability to execute these orders, state has to actually execute it. There is no other way out. And if during execution of these orders, if there are difficulties, the state government can approach the court stating these difficulties and asking for amendments of the order or certain, different approach towards guidance or a different way of, executing this order. But there's no other way out except executing what the court has actually directed. So, and if it is not executed, obviously there are contempt proceedings and all that issue is there. So, Supreme Court taking these issues and issuing these directions is a very important step, and the state government cannot take it lightly. It has to implement it. And another thing is like regarding lack of worshippers. See, as Mr. Chakma rightly said, the state cannot restore these places of worship within these 2 weeks. What the state government was directed was to identify the places of worship and to secure that, ensure that the people in the relief camp are able to, enjoy this festival or celebrate this festival. So it has to be in the relief camp wherever they are staying, with the present facilities. And frankly, Kartikeya, I don't think people are in a mood to celebrate. Actually, Diwali also, people they don't celebrate. Bhai Dooj, nobody celebrated over there. First time in the history of Manipur, Ningol Chakova, that is Bhai Dooj as we know in
Okay.
other part of Asia.
Okay.
So
This is
likewise,
exactly what I
Christmas,
was saying in my answer.
yeah, Christmas, like I believe people of the other community also, and also Meitei Christians, they will not be in the mood to celebrate. If they celebrate this, Christmas, it'll be in a very different mood
Subdued,
because
very subdued celebration, very subdued celebration. I'm also joined by group cap. Yeah, I'm joined by group captain Mr. Nandakumar Sharma. Mr. Nandakumar Sharma, today the court has gone into the heart of the matter. It has touched upon certain religious issue, and Manipur, there was an ethnic conflict, also had a religious fault line to it. Do you think that in a way court is stepping in where the state government has not done the needful as it should have?
Yeah, it is a very good step by the court, I would say. However, there was no this thing religious line in this conflict, but it was purposely brought out by some, say, whatever the reason it may be. But the court has given right decision to restore all worship places. It is very welcome issue, and the state government should work to restore all the worship places. Let it be churches, let it be Hindu mandirs, let it be Buddhist temple or the Sanamahi temples of Meitei. So all these are to be restored at the earliest, though court has given 2 weeks time. I don't know how it can be achieved, but a positive steps towards restoring all these worship places will be a good initiative by the state government. And now the court has given an order, so the state government and its authority cannot keep simply idle. So some action has to be taken, and it is a very good step by the court, though it is late.